By the end of this video, you're going to learn the 3 hardest words for trauma survivors to say. And my hope is that by the end, you're also going to get some tools and techniques that you can begin to work on these safely in your own relationships. Hi, I'm Tom Phil. I'm a trauma-informed coach, and I've been working with adults for years who struggle with relational or attachment trauma to regain trust in themselves and others so that they can experience a safe and secure relationship. Now, stick around to the very end because the third one might surprise you the most. Okay, number 1 is the word no. Now, that might be kind of surprising because it might feel like you say no a lot, but being able to actually say no in your relationship, being actually to set a boundary in your relationship can be very difficult sometimes for trauma survivors. If you've suffered from abandonment, neglect, feeling unsafe for prolonged periods of time, being able to set a boundary and being able to say no to your partner can be really difficult for you to do. And what that means is that oftentimes you just give up at the expense of yourself. You give up any kind of boundaries you would really want to have. And you tend to take on this people-pleasing type of approach or strategy in your relationship. You also might find that not saying no means that you tend to be overly attuned at times to your partner. Maybe you find yourself walking on eggshells sometimes, worried about their particular response. Or maybe you find yourself in a situation where you're just uneasy as opposed to feeling relaxed and safe because your partner doesn't often respect the boundaries when you do set them. So being able to say no in your relationship is crucial to being able to learn how to set healthy emotional boundaries for yourself. Now, a couple of lines that I want to give you because these can be really important to have in your back pocket when for any reason you need to be able to set a boundary. So the first one is no thank you. So that does not need any further explanation. Oftentimes, it just needs a period at the end. As I've said before, no's a complete sentence. It really doesn't need any further explanation. And so when you say no, thank you, it doesn't need, well, but this and how about that? And oh, because of, it doesn't need all that stuff. You can just simply say, whether it's to your partner or to a colleague or anybody else, no, thank you. Or you can say, no, I don't think that works for me, but I appreciate it. So you're respecting it, you're saying it nicely, you're doing it in a very good way, but you're still setting that boundary. And so that's another one that you can have in your back pocket. A third one that you can consider as well is, I'm sorry, I don't think that works for me, but I appreciate you thinking of me. So that might come from a colleague or that might come from somebody else, a cold caller on the phone. Maybe it's always been difficult to say no to them and get them to stop or to interrupt them. And they're designed to do just that. That's actually a good place to start working on learning how to say no. If you get some cold calls, if you get some people that are calling you up on the phone, solicitors of some kind, start using that as a practice ground to be able to say no more often. I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off here. I don't need anything. I'm good right now, but thanks for your call. And then you can hang up. You're being polite, you're being respectful, but you're setting a firm boundary. So start with small micro boundaries. Start with just saying no, thank you, or no, that doesn't work for me, or you know what, I'm going to go in a different direction that feels more right for me. Thank you for thinking of me, but I'm going to pass right now. Any of these can be very helpful. One other one that I want to give you that can be very helpful too, and that is the power of the pause. You don't rarely ever have to make a decision in the immediate moment. You can always take some time and say, let me think about it. If I decide something, I'll get back to you. You know, that's very interesting. Thank you for that, but I'm going to think about it and I'll follow up. Do you have a contact number? Or, honey, I appreciate that invite to dinner. I don't know how I'm going to feel tonight. I just want to see. Let me think about it and I'll tell you this evening. It's always okay to be able to pause and think about what you want, especially for trauma survivors sometimes who have a sea of emotions going on inside them, and they've often learned to doubt what they might feel. And especially for the more anxious style of attachment, who tends to have a lot of emotions coming up for them, being able to sort those out, differentiate them, and figure out what they truly feel is really important for their post-traumatic growth. So learning to say no is extremely important. And you can work on this just by starting with small steps. Start with a solicitor that might call on the phone. Start with setting a small boundary with a friend. And pretty soon what you'll do is you'll regain trust in yourself, because you'll begin to really recognize, oh, this isn't so bad. I'm not getting maybe the huge exaggerated response that I was expecting from others, but rather they're starting to respect me saying no. And I don't have to go on and I don't have to elaborate on and on and on or explain on and on and on why I'm just simply saying no. So no can be one of the hardest words for trauma survivors to say in their relationships, but it can definitely be a skill that you continue to develop. Number 2 is sorry. Sorry can be a difficult word for trauma survivors to say in their relationships, and it can look 2 different ways. One, it could be somebody who rarely ever apologizes. Or 2, it can show up in a way where the partner over apologizes. They seem to say sorry for all kinds of things before they might even know what they're really sorry about. So sorry can be a difficult word for trauma survivors to be able to say in their relationships. Let's start with the former of the 2, the one where maybe you have a partner that rarely apologizes, that rarely is able to admit that they were wrong about something. What this really means, because an apology is more than just somebody coming and saying they're sorry. An apology really is an accountability for their role in what happened, whether it's something they did or something they said. It's an acknowledgement and accountability of how they might have hurt you, their partner. And so if you have a partner that rarely ever apologizes, it's often times because they're protecting some kind of sense of shame about themselves. If they were to apologize, then it might hit on some sense of a trauma response when they were made to feel bad about who they were, about being wrong growing up in their family, or having been with a previous partner that was really belligerent, or whatever the situation might have been that caused them. They really struggle to be able to soften and get to that place where they can say sorry. So what they tend to do instead is they just sort of eventually warm back up to you as their partner. Eventually they just start talking about other things, and they're really good at being able to sweep it under the rug. And so for them, being able to apologize means they have to face this sense of shame within themselves. And oftentimes that can be really difficult to do, because shame, by the very nature of the emotion itself, makes us want to hide. It makes us want to run and hide ourselves because it makes us feel very exposed. So for some people that struggle to apologize because of past trauma, they struggle to be able to get in touch with enough of their core sense of self to be able to say, you know, I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have responded that way. You deserved better in that moment. And be able to embrace this sense of their true self that's not falling into a shame spiral, that's not trying to hide under some sort of a defective sense of self that was created out of their trauma. Now, the reverse side of that is that there are sometimes partners that over apologize. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Oh, I'm sorry you feel bad. And really what they're doing is that's almost a defense tactic they're using. When you have somebody that over apologizes, what they're doing is they're trying to avoid any kind of conflict. And we tend to see this a little bit more with more avoidance style, attachment styles, because they're really wanting to not get caught up in an argument and have it escalate. And so they tend to over apologize in a way that they're trying to downplay any big emotional response or anything that might lead to an argument, as opposed to staying sort of with that core part of themselves that says, you know, I've got to learn first what I'm supposed to be sorry about, because I really don't think I'm sorry in this situation. I don't know what I did wrong. Now, if I did do something wrong, I'll take accountability for it, which they're usually very good at doing. But they first need to pause and learn, what was it I did wrong? What exactly might I be sorry for? Or what exactly are you upset or angry about? And so it's this knee-jerk response they have where they immediately just want to apologize because they want to avoid any kind of conflict. So saying sorry can be very difficult for the trauma survivor in the relationship where they either don't say it much at all or they tend to over-apologize. Okay, number 3, and this one might surprise you, it might not surprise you, but the third hardest word for trauma survivors to say in their relationships at times is help. The word help. And that might be because growing up in an environment, the word help actually brought about danger. It might have brought about criticism or complaint or ridicule or being made fun of, being shamed for needing help. But whatever it might be, the word help became a dirty word in their family growing up. So what did they learn? They learned that you never want to depend on somebody else. You don't reach out and ask for help. You make sure you've got it all together at all times. And they oftentimes can build this sort of false sense of self, this false exterior where they've got everything together, but inside they're really drowning. Think about it like a duck on the water, right? On the top of the water, it looks really smooth, but underneath it's just paddling like crazy. Well, oftentimes in my experience, when I'm working with trauma survivors or couples that have trauma, that's a little bit what I'm seeing and experiencing. This idea that underneath the surface, they're really drowning. They're feeling like they're going under and it's too much, it's overwhelming, but on the surface, they've got everything together. So being able to reach out and say the word help, say the word, I need help, I'm not doing very well, or I'm overwhelmed, or can you help me with this? It would really mean a lot to you or to me. Those kinds of statements just aren't always in their makeup. They don't always think to ask for help, and they don't always think that somebody's actually going to be willing to show up and help them. So one of the things that you can do to work on this is begin small. Ask for small little things. Hey, would you mind just picking up the living room when I'm gone to work today? I'd really appreciate that. Ask for just small little things. Hey, is it okay if we just go by and get the car washed before we go out to dinner tonight so we have a nice clean car? Just asking for small little micro helps are good. And they might start outside yourself. They might start with things that could help you get things done to make your day better or more effective. Hey, I'd really appreciate it if you would surprise me sometime. It used to be so romantic in our relationship and I loved it. And so would you just think about that and maybe have a surprise for me sometimes, because it would just mean so much and I'd feel so much more connected to you. So maybe it's something that's in your relationship, or maybe it's something that's within yourself. You know, I'm not doing very well today. I think I'm gonna pass on dinner tonight. Is it okay if we just order pizza and watch a movie? Or do you mind if we just sit down and chat a little bit before we go out tonight? Because I'm just having a hard day and stuff's coming up for me and I'm just not doing very well. Being able to ask for help is crucially important for your post-traumatic growth. Because oftentimes when you're able to ask for help, what you're getting at is a need that needs to be met for you. Maybe it's for somebody to help you feel less overwhelmed. Maybe it's for somebody to be able to show up and be emotionally available and responsive to you. But help often means that there's a need that's missing for you. And in many ways, asking for help is asking for that need to be met. So start small, start in a space that feels somewhat safe and comfortable, and then try to expand out. One quick way to do that is make a list, 1 through 10. What's a 10 is the least emotionally anxious asking for help that you could actually ask for. So maybe it's just, can you help me make the kids' lunch tomorrow? Okay, that feels pretty safe. I'll start there. And then you can add on another one and another one. The number 10 would be one of the most anxious things that you could possibly ask for help for. And so start with the small ones and kind of just stretch yourself in a very safe way, but you can stretch yourself and kind of work your way up that list. What would be a small one that I could ask for help for? And then one that stretches me just a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more until I can get up and get better at this particular skill. Asking for help means that you're human. We all need help sometimes. And sometimes day-to-day life just beats us up. And sometimes we need to have a person or a place that we can go and ask for help, because it is a soft place to land and it is a secure resource for us. So work on asking for help, because you'll find that you'll begin to trust yourself more, and it'll become more comfortable when you're able to express this word better in your relationships. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for watching. My name is Tom Philp, and I'm here to remind you to stay grounded, clear, and connected.